Hello and welcome to my very first book haul of 2023. I have been trying not to buy many books this year. I've really hard, I've been making an active effort to not buy books, and 13 in the first 6 months of the year is pretty good for me. I've been making a progress in that. So, kudos to me there. I was actually doing a lot better until June, and then I kind of got a number of books in June that I really didn't need to buy, so that put the number a little bit higher than it needed to be, but that's fine. I've been doing well this year. In 6 months, well, slightly less than 6 months because I'm filming this in the middle of June, just as extra pressure for me to not buy anything else this month. Excuse you. I have 13 books. I lost my train of thought. I probably wasn't saying anything anyway. I'm gonna start with the 2 new books I bought because those are exciting and I don't know what they are. I went to an indie bookstore down in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was really lovely. I had a great time there, and they had a blind date with a bookshelf that had a bunch of books on it. So I got 2 and I haven't opened them yet. I was going to open them, and then I feel like it's always disappointing when you open them. Not because the books are bad, but the excitement comes from the unknown, and as soon as you open them, they stop being unknown. So I'm gonna open them now and maybe try to read them. The first is Follow Maud, an 88-year-old Swedish woman with no family, no friends, and no qualms about murder. My only thought on this, and on the back it has the ISBN number, so you could cheat if you wanted. I didn't. I didn't even look at my receipt. I was just I don't want to know. My only thought on this is that it could very possibly be Frederick Bachman. This book doesn't ring a bell. I was mostly looking at books that were specific enough that I was certain I hadn't read them. If this isn't Frederick Bachman, I don't know who it is. I kind of hope it's not Frederick Bachman because I don't really like him. But she's an 88-year-old woman who has no family, no friends, and no qualms about murder. I was never going to not buy this book. And it's also weirdly small. To compare it next to a normal paperback, it's tiny. It's smaller than a mass market, and it feels hardback, so I don't know what it is. Just solely on the basis of reading the back of this, it sounds amazing. 10 out of 10. I am so stoked on this book. It's called An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good by Helene Tursten. It's not Frederick Bachman, which is exciting, and I was this doesn't sound like a Frederick Bachman book, but according to the back, over the course of her adventures, or misadventures, this little bold lady will handle a crisis with a local celebrity who has her eyes on Maud's apartment, foil the engagement of her long-ago lover, and dispose of some pesky neighbors. 10 out of 10, this was a great decision on my part. I'm so excited for this. And it's stories, so is it short stories? Oh, the indie bookstore I went to was Quail Ridge Books. In case you're curious, it was wonderful. I highly recommend if you're ever in Raleigh. I love this. This is my new favorite thing. It's oh, this is amazing. Yeah, it's short stories of just her being a troublemaker. This is amazing. 10 out of 10. I'm super excited. Let me know if you've read this and if it's as amazing as it sounds, because it sounds amazing and this makes me so happy. We're off to a good start on this haul. I had not heard of this before, but 12 out of 10, 100 out of 10. I'm excited, and it's tiny. The other book, which now I'm disappointed because nothing's ever gonna live up to that, a literary classical music thriller that deals with violin theft and racism, set right here in North Carolina. Keep snacks handy, you won't want to get up. I mostly picked this one up because I wanted to get I wasn't certain that was a real book, and I mean it is, but it's very much it's not a novel, you know, which I could tell by the teeny tiny size. Which I love this, but I wanted to get something that was a novel, and this is very specific enough that I for sure haven't read it. Like, some of the descriptions of them were like kind of vague, where I was like, I've read a number of books that could like fit that description. It sounds good, but I'm not gonna risk it. Whereas this, it was like, I've not read anything about a stolen violin in North Carolina, so I think I'm good. I think it's a thriller. I mean, it says it's a thriller. Both of these are adult fiction, because the young adult was in a different section, and they tagged all of the nonfiction, which I looked at, but I kind of read a lot of nonfiction and own a lot of nonfiction. I didn't want to risk it. This is The Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocumb. Had not heard of this book or the author, so that's exciting. It's about a dude who's a violinist and is competing in the Olympics of classical music, as it's described on here, and his priceless violin is stolen, and then he has to recover it, and it's kind of exactly what it sounded, but like, it looks good. I'm stoked. I don't know, it's exactly what I kind of thought it would be, but like, in a good way. Like, I'm glad I hadn't heard of this. It's fun to pick up random things, and I'm excited to read it. It's just like, it's not that I'm not excited, it's just that I was way more stoked on the Swedish book, so this still sounds good though. And then on to the 11 things that I actually bought intentionally, knowing what they were. I have Girl Sleuth, Nancy Drew and the Women Who Created Her by Melanie Rehak. This is a nonfiction book about Nancy Drew and the women who created her, as the title would suggest. It starts in the early 1900s with like with the man who owned the Stratemeyer Syndicate. I think his name was Edward Stratemeyer, and he came up with Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and the Bobbsey Twins and the Rover Boys and like a whole lot of like those series characters, most of which have kind of been like forgotten to time. But he originally came up with the idea of Nancy Drew. He died after like the first 3 books had been published, and the book really focuses on his daughter, who took over as CEO for him as a woman in the 1930s, and then the first ghostwriter who wrote a number of the Nancy Drew books. I apologize for my cats being demons. I've already read this. It was really wonderful. It was a lot denser and like a lot more like historical information than I was expecting, because it offers like a lot of like historical context on, you know, what created Nancy Drew, like not just the people involved, but like the societal expectations of women, and like what it meant for the character, and like how she became beloved, and like how she changed over time as like society changed, and like, I don't know, it was really, really interesting. I loved it. I highly recommend if you're interested in Nancy Drew. My friend passed this along to me, Before Your Memory Fades by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is the 3rd book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I read the first one. I really enjoyed it. I don't have the second one or have access to it. My library doesn't have the second one, so I need to find that before I can read this book. But it's essentially about this little cafe where you can travel through time for like the length of time that your coffee is hot. You have to return to the present before your coffee gets cold, and like you can't leave the cafe and you can't get up from your seat, and there's a lot of like little quirky rules, but it's just like it was a really bittersweet collection of 4 stories. So I am looking forward to continuing on. This is the 3rd one. Then I have The Heart of Betrayal by Mary E. Pearson. This is the 2nd book in the Kiss of Deception series. I've not read it. I own the first one. It's a YA fantasy series. I know there's a love triangle. All I know about the books is that it's about this girl who is a princess, I think, in hiding, or she's run away, and like you're following these 2 teenage boys or men, young men, I don't know, who are searching for her, and one of them is a prince who wants to marry her or something, and then one is an assassin who's trying to kill her, and you don't know which is which, and it kind of just follows them as like everything comes together, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't really sound like my kind of thing, but everyone talks about this series like it's super fun and it's a great time. So I got the first one when I saw it in the thrift store, and then I saw this in the thrift store and was like, I have the first one, so I might as well. But I have not read the first one, so hopefully I enjoy it, because now I own the sequel too. Black Girls Must Die Exhausted by Jayne Allen. This is a contemporary novel about a woman in her 30s who's like kind of trying to figure out like her career, her relationship. She's trying to have it all and kind of figuring that maybe she can't, and like, does she want children, and like, is her current partner the one she wants to have children with, and if not, like, she's got to find someone new. I don't know. A lot of things going on. I know Ty from Ty's Book Corner really loves this book. It's a whole trilogy, but I feel like I'm just gonna give this book a go, and then maybe probably just stick with this one, because full series and contemporary aren't really my thing. But she loves this book, and I saw it in a thrift store and it looked really interesting, so I'm excited about it, and it seems like a really fun, really interesting read. They're There by Tommy Orange. This is his debut novel. It's a literary fiction novel about, I think, like 10 or 12 different characters or something who are all going to this powwow. He's an indigenous author also. And they all have like their different reasons for going there, and it talks a lot about being urban and indigenous, and it's a lot about like Oakland and the setting of Oakland. And I don't know, I'm having trouble talking about it because I am like actually reading this right now. I'm like 50 pages and it's really good. Like, I love his writing style. It's gorgeous. I've heard wonderful things about this book, but like, I don't really know what the purpose or the point or like the overall story is. It's just kind of like a collection of stories about these characters who are all in Oakland, who all have like their own very distinct stories and voices, who are all going to this powwow. And I don't know, it's really good so far, but I don't really know where it's going. I really love it though. Skinship by Yoon Choi. This is a short story collection about being Korean American. That is literally all I know about this book. I've never heard anyone talk about it. The description is kind of just like a collection of stories about like Korean American families, and like, I think it calls it a constellation of them, so they might all be like interconnected, which would be interesting. But yeah, I really don't know anything about this apart from I like the cover. It's very pretty. It intrigued me, so hopefully it's wonderful. Oh, Caledonia by Elspeth Barker. This is a, I think, young adult or at least coming of age gothic story written in the 90s. This was recommended to me by reading the Sleuth for my 12 book challenge. It was the only book that I could not get from the library, so I had to purchase a copy. I haven't read it yet, but hopefully it's good. I have read the description multiple times and I don't really know what it's about, but I've heard wonderful things, so I'm hoping it's really wonderful. The Always War by Margaret Peterson Haddix. This is another one that I've actually already read. It's a middle-grade dystopian novel about a country that is always at war with their neighbors. Like, this war has been going on for generations. It's just kind of always present. And the main protagonists find out some secrets about the war and decide they have to bring certain things to life. And it's kind of just about like what it means to be a passive participant in warfare. And I don't know, it's really, really interesting. I don't think it's her best book. It was very like short. It was a little bit too quick for me, but like, I've been collecting Margaret Peterson Haddix for a minute. Like, kind of whenever I see her in thrift stores, I always grab it. I really enjoyed her when I was a kid, and I do think her stories and her themes hold up really well to adulthood. Like, I always found the commentary in them really interesting when I was a child, and I do actually feel the same as an adult. So again, don't think this is her best, but it was still a really interesting, worthwhile read. Fallout by Sara Paretsky. This is a V.I. Warshawski story. Don't know anything about it apart from it's a thriller. I got it from a low free library, and I've heard Sara Paretsky, I've heard of her before, and I've kind of just like wanted to read her for a minute. Like, I don't know, not like super been interested in her because I don't know anything about her. She's just one of those thriller authors who's kind of been on my radar for a minute, and I kind of saw her book at the little free library and was like, let's try. Like, let's get it and stick it on the shelf and eventually read her and see if she's good. I have no idea if this is well reviewed. This is an ARC actually, but I think it's from like 2017. Yeah, April of 2017. So it's an older book, but like, I don't know. I've been curious about her, and since she was in the little free library and I was dropping off a bunch of books, I was like, let's give it a try. I have Darker by E.L. James. This is 50 Shades Darker. That's the title. 50 Shades Darker as told by a Christian. I have not read the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy, nor have I read the sequels, but my best friend did. And whenever we go to thrift stores and we see these, she always makes me buy them because she hated the books. She thought they were terrible, and she talks about them a lot. And she read them a long time ago, and eventually I'm going to have to read them. And she wants me to read all 6 of them. I think there are 6. I think the only one I don't have is Freed, which is 50 Shades Freed, as told by Christian. I'm not looking forward to this. I don't know that I will actually ever read these, but getting them is just kind of a joke between us at this point. So, like, I get them, and I now have 5 of them, and they are so thick. Like, why are these books as long as they are? Like, this is not a thin book. This is, like, 500 pages long. Why is this 500 pages long? I don't know, but I now own it. And then the last book is actually a legitimate one. It is The Walls by Hollie Overton. I think this is her 2nd book. I read Baby Doll, which was, I think, her 1st book. I might be making this up, though. And I really loved Baby Doll. It's a thriller about a woman who was kidnapped and held as a sex slave for a while. And then I think she escapes, and it's really a lot about, like, her escape and, like, after the fact. And I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. And I knew she'd written more, and I always kind of meant to buy them. And then I saw this at the thrift store, and I was like, oh, I really, really want to read that. So I got it. And, like, I feel like of all the books I got, this is, like, the most legitimate one. Because I'm, like, really, really excited to read this. I loved her 1st book. So, like, I will probably read this soon. Or I'm lying here. I don't know. But I was really excited to find this. Like, this is one that, like, I genuinely wanted to buy and genuinely want to own. Because Baby Doll is one of the only thrillers that I've kept. I own, like, 3 thrillers that aren't Karen Slaughter books that I've already read. And Baby Doll is one of them. So, very, very excited for The Walls. I don't know what it's about. I don't really care. I have not read the description. I'm just excited to read the book. So those were the 13 books I have bought in the first 6 months of this year, which sounds more impressive. That's like barely more than 2 books a month average. I feel like I'm doing good on this challenge. Could have bought less. Should probably reel in my, like, self-control a little bit, especially since I have my birthday and Christmas coming up in the second half of the year. But I'm excited for the vast majority of these, especially The Walls, and whatever this is. This sounds amazing. So, I don't know what this is, but this is just, like, immediately stoked. Immediately, it's tiny, and it's still, like, 150 pages. Like, what is this? I love this. This makes me so happy, but this is everything I bought. Let me know down below if you've read any of these and what you thought of them if you have. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.